Let's now go over the blood flow through the heart and then where that blood goes after leaving the heart. First thing to keep in mind is that there's two circuits, and blood flow is through both circuits simultaneously. One circuit is the pulmonary circuit, which is the right side of the heart, receiving blood, pumping it to the lungs, and then bringing it back to the heart. The second circuit is the systemic circuit. That's the left side of the heart, receiving blood from the lungs, then pumping it throughout the body and then back. We're going to begin at the right atrium. That's a good place to start, and then we'll go through both circuits. So you'll notice that I put some numbers next to these. Those will help you put proper blood flow in order. So the right atrium, if we went backwards, we would see that that blood is coming from the superior vena cava, from the inferior vena cava, but also from what's called this coronary sinus. That blood is deoxygenated, coming from tissues and organs that got that oxygen. That blood will then go through the tricuspid valve to enter the right ventricle. From the right ventricle, blood flows through the pulmonary valve once it's opened into the pulmonary trunk. The pulmonary trunk needs to split into two pulmonary arteries because there's two lungs. So there's a right pulmonary artery and a left pulmonary artery. Notice these are arteries because we are going away from the heart. This blood is deoxygenated, so we have to go to the lungs. Once in the lungs, these pulmonary arteries are going to lead to smaller arteries called arterioles, and then finally pulmonary capillaries. And you'll notice that the color is beginning to change. We are going from the deoxygenated blue, starting to pick up oxygen in the lungs at pulmonary capillaries. So the blood is beginning to turn red. So purple is often referred to as blood that's starting to change, either from deoxygenated to oxygenated, or when we look at systemic capillaries, from oxygenated to deoxygenated. From those pulmonary capillaries, once we get all that oxygen, we got to go back. We have to go back to the heart so it can be pumped systemically. So pulmonary veins bring that blood back to the heart, specifically to the left atrium. And you'll see that there are 4 pulmonary veins attached to the left atrium. So this is the pulmonary circuit. Right side of the heart, pumping to the lungs. Then the blood comes back in pulmonary veins. Notice the direction of blood flow towards the heart. Therefore, these are veins. Now, the left side of the heart's job is to pump blood throughout the body. So the blood in the left atrium has to go through the mitral valve to enter the left ventricle. From that left ventricle, it goes through a valve, the aortic valve, in order to get into the aorta. Then the aorta has got different parts. So this part of the aorta is actually known as the ascending aorta. This part is the arch of the aorta. And then the blood descends behind the heart. So this is the descending aorta. Then, guess what? If the descending aorta is in your chest, it's called the thoracic aorta. When the descending aorta goes through the diaphragm to get into the abdominal cavity, it's called the abdominal aorta. So the aorta is a big artery with different names based on location of that aorta. Off of the aorta, there are what we call collectively systemic arteries. Now, these systemic arteries all have specific names. There's a bunch of them throughout the body supplying blood to different parts So each of these systemic arteries have specific names that we're going to learn about when we get to the blood vessel chapter. But some of them are these that come off the arch. So I just named all these systemic, but these actually have specific names like brachiocephalic, left common carotid, left subclavian. But we'll get into those names another day. From those systemic arteries that come off the aorta, not just the arch, but even down in your abdomen, those arteries begin to become smaller arteries called systemic arterioles, and there's a lot of those. These are microscopic arteries. These are tiny little arteries found in all your organs. From those little arteries, it leads to systemic capillaries. So this is the other site of exchange. As opposed to the pulmonary capillaries, systemic capillaries allow oxygen to leave your blood to enter cells, and then it picks up carbon dioxide. So now the blood is going from oxygenated to deoxygenated. Those little capillaries lead to little veins called venules. Little veins become bigger veins called systemic veins, and those are often situated right next to the systemic arteries. Systemic veins eventually combine into big, huge veins, the vena cava, either the superior or the inferior. And those are going to bring that blood into the right atrium. So this is the complete cardiovascular circuit, both the pulmonary and the systemic. There's a couple links I have here. You can go to this link if you like. It animates this a bit. It kind of shows blood flow. I'm not going to play the blood flow song. I highly recommend it. You can find that on YouTube. It's really annoying, and really annoying songs tend to stick in your brain, so that can't hurt. But this is kind of what you do. You learn all the structures first and then put it all together by blood flow. Other anatomy that we talk about in the heart, we're going to do in the next video lecture. So that we're almost there. We're almost through anatomy of the heart.